so we like grow up with these perspectives that are given to us by our families or, you know, our teachers or wherever we grew up, or like, you know, if you grew up in an area with no diversity, you know, it just feels really new and strange, and like you are losing something, but like, like it's not a piece of pie, right? Like it's not like no one's taking a slice of pie.
Everyone uses that. Like, I just want a piece of the pie. It's like, can we just...
It's just not... It's not
this is not about desserts.
But, you know, and then, right, it just kind of sort of becomes a snowball effect where then, you know, and of course we know how algorithms work, right? So then you sort of continue to be fed that same perspective, and, you know, it all just feels really intoxicating because it feels comfortable, because you don't have to challenge anything that you've learned. You don't have to go to Thanksgiving dinner and be like, well, Pop, that's racist, right? Like it just keeps you where you are. And we humans, of course, love to feel comfort. Our brains want that. It's like, you know, nobody wants to feel fear or danger or, like, God forbid, disconnection from the people that we love and care about, because when you grow, your relationships change, right? So I think that like some of the major moments were, one, people understanding what privilege actually means, and that, like, you know, there's no way you can like give it up or get rid of it. Like we say, give up your privilege, but it just means like, what are the things that, you know, sort of make your life like inherently easier that you can then use to make someone else's life easier. So for example, you know, something that, because of, you know, being, you know, in fitness and being a Lululemon ambassador and being in a lot of really white environments, I've like cultivated a really wonderful community of white people who are allies, who are open, who, listen to what I have to say and listen to my perspective, even if it's different from how they've grown up, or it challenges them, or even if they feel defensive, right? They're just a little more open. So me knowing that, like, that's a privilege of mine to say, oh my gosh, Ashley, this means that you can use your voice and perhaps another Black woman might not be able to. So that's an opportunity for me to give up my privilege and speak up, right? Or like, if I have this network of folks, like, if somebody comes to me and asks me for a recommendation, like I can elevate people, I can amplify people, I can say like, oh, here's this person that you've never heard of. Instead of going to the same, you know, like girl, like give this girl a chance, or right? It's like, it's that. And I'm not losing anything by amplifying other people or using my skill sets to help other people. Like that is an act of service. That is inherently being a better human. Like it's not. And so like, I think that some of the best moments have been around privilege, because I've watched people grow in that way and sort of think about how they can amplify, how they can, you know, make something better for someone based on like something that they have, right? A lot of white women in my community have definitely been vocal in like speaking up or like speaking, you know, like speaking up in ways that challenge the status quo, because they know their voices are going to be heard, or they know they're not going to be fired, or they know, right? Like things like that. Some of my friends who are a little wealthier have spent lots of money donating to things, or right, it's just like you just use what you have to make things better. And so like those moments have been really, really, really wonderful. Something else that comes to mind is like, people are generally unafraid in my community. People are generally unafraid or becoming unafraid at fact checking things, right? Like spending more time researching, spending more time reading, spending more time diversifying their read. So even when it comes to like something as stupid as fiction, right? Reading like a book from an Indian author or whatever Asian author or whatever, like all romance doesn't have to be, you know, two white people. It doesn't have to be like Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston, right? There are so many different kinds of love, like stuff like that. Like the expansion it's been worth it for me to continue, because it also sucks sometimes, like let's be honest, right? But people being open to expand that's monumental to me, hands down.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask kind of a couple of tough questions and just have like a really raw conversation about this. But I think that a lot of times as a white person, male or female, right, it becomes also a topic that I think, again, people don't know about, so they just don't bother. But also it can feel a little bit like a sticky situation, right? Because this is not making general statements, but there are experiences where it's like, ask questions, let's talk about it, let's start the conversation, and then, oh, well, I shouldn't have to be the one to educate you in this. You need to go read it yourself, right? Or, okay, you can ask me questions, but, oh, wait, not that question. Or, like, we want you to be an ally, but wait a second, you have no leg to stand on this issue. So I think a lot of times it's hard because every person is entitled to their own feelings, and all of them are correct. But I think it's this delicate dance of when maybe in someone's comfort zone may not be someone else's. And so people feel very nervous because they don't want to get in the middle of something that they shouldn't be in the middle of. And I think that also is what causes a lot of hesitancy for people as well. It's the not knowing, but also I'm afraid to try to get to know because I don't know what I'm going to be met with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And how, I'm curious, in your circle, your community, have you had people had similar experiences, or what would be your general piece of advice for people feeling like that? Like, I just don't know what to do, so I'm going to stay away, kind of,
Yeah. I mean, I think too, right, like just under the umbrella of DEI, you have race for sure, but you also have age, you also have sexuality, you also have all these other things. And so for the white people, you're not the only one who feels that, right? If there's things for, I don't know, even let's say like body size, right? I'm a size 6. That's like really, like, well, it depends on what size. Some people would say it's not thin, but like some people would.
Those people are not the type of people that listen to my podcast. Let me tell you that. I'm not say things like that here.
But, like, I enjoy thin privilege, right? I'm thin, I'm fit, whatever, right? And so even when things about body size come up, for me, I get nervous because I'm like, well, I enjoy this kind of privilege and I have this kind of body. And so like, I should shut the fuck up because I'm going to offend somebody, or like, I'm going to say something fat phobic and not even know it and whatever. Right. Like, and I grew up in a very fat phobic household. Like my father was a professional boxer. Like, of course we were fat phobic. So, like everything has always been around not necessarily being in a small body, but being in a fit body, which is like how we see it, usually inherently smaller, right? So white people, other people have the same things, right? When it comes to something that they are unsure of, whether it's people with disabilities, people who are neurodiverse, right? Like we all kind of experience like, oh shit, I don't know anything about that and I'm going to offend somebody. So, right, you're like, number one, you're not alone. And I, as a Black person, have definitely been on that other end of like, you don't even know what you're talking about, right? So like, have a seat. And it sucks. And it definitely makes you want to not step up anymore because you're like, well, if I'm just going to make a mistake, then screw it. Here's the thing. Okay. When people want you to be an ally, know that ally is more of a verb than a label. So it's always going to be about like the action, right? A lot of people like to say, I'm an ally and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And people want to like put all their shit on blast and like whatever. But know that part of that sort of being in that action of an ally, part of it is listening to what the leaders are asking for, right? So it means you're not the loudest voice in the room. It means you're not going to all the other white people and saying, well, you're doing it wrong because blah, 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 right? It means that you're in that space. It means that you're more of a follower than a leader. And it means that you're supporting that movement in whatever way that movement wants to be supported, right? So that's like one side of it. And then the other side of it is like, the internet is an interesting place because sometimes people do say things without having done any research or without any respect for like how a person might be feeling. So I'll give you an example. Like sometimes people will send me a DM and be like, you know, I read such and such in this book and I disagree with it because I'm a white person who blah, blah, blah. And as a black person, like, what are your thoughts? And I'm like, wow, what do I do with that? Right?
That's a lot.
And so it does kind of get like, whoa, okay, you need to back up. You need to like go grapple with that on your own, right? I'm under no obligation to teach you or walk you through your feelings, especially for free, like in a DM, right? Like, so sometimes it's like this energy of, I want to be better. Teach me. And it's like, there are so many ways to like listen and be engaged without putting the labor on the person, on the marginalized person, to walk you through it or whatever. I think that on the flip side, sometimes people can be, sometimes people can just be mean. Sometimes people can be not empathetic. Sometimes people, you know, when you are in a marginalized body, sometimes you're just so tired and so angry and so sick of it. And so sick of like living with fear, that like, yeah, sometimes you lash out. Sometimes you're like, have no space for people and their questions and their this and their that.
That's
and that really sucks.
Human though.
Yeah.
And everyone's entitled to that. But I can't speak from experience. I'm not in your shoes, but I understand that feeling may almost come along with the idea of, are there going to be more consequences for me, right? Because of whatever the stereotypes are, whatever the this or that, right? And it's like, how do, I want to, we say we're equal. We say that everybody is viewed the same, but I don't contemplate things like that.
Yeah.
And so that for me is like, we think we're making progress, but we still have so much more to go.
Yeah.
And it's not just race, right? It's like you said, it's body size. It's gender. It's so many different things. Even today at the event, it was women, we were sharing some stories in the circle, and this woman was talking about just, a little while ago, she went into a meeting and she was a director level. She sat down and one of the guys there was like, oh, cute, are you the note taker?
See, exactly.
And it's like, we're still like, you know what I mean? So it's not about any one of the given areas. It's more about zooming out in the bigger picture of just like, there's still these discrepancies. There's still this unfairness. And people need to stop thinking that it's about taking away from anybody else. I don't necessarily want what you have. I just want to be able to have what I want to, you know?
Yeah. It's just, it's people, to your point, people still think that like we're all in the same playing field, and we're not. Like we're just not. If somebody is a wheelchair user, they cannot go shop on Newberry Street the way you and I can just go down the steps, go up the steps, go like, where the sidewalk is uneven and this and that. Like, you can't tell me that things are like all people have everything they need to thrive. Like, they don't, right? So like, we need to be a little less concerned about our feelings and a little more concerned about like, how do we help? Right? Like, your feelings are going to get hurt. You're going to be wrong. You're going to mess something up. You're going to offend somebody. Like, I'm going to do it too. It's not just like, white people. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. So do the best you can. Commit to trying to educate yourself. Maybe it's like one article a day. Maybe it's one book a month. I don't know. Commit to something. and just go for it.
Yeah. So much of it has to do, I think, with just releasing that ego too.
Yeah.
And
You
that
gotta,
pride.
yeah.
And I think a lot of that self-help, the journaling will help with that ego.
It does.
It certainly will.
Yeah.
So it all kind of comes back together in a way.
Yep.